2.
Good evening. We welcome you to this work session of the Buchanan Community Schools Board of Education. All regular meetings have been posted on our district website, in our central office, and in each district school building. This evening's agenda is available on our district website located on the Board of Education page under Board Agenda. Our school board members received the agenda and all supporting documents several days prior to this meeting, so they can review the information, prepare questions or comments, and are ready to fully participate in discussions and votes that encompass the duties of their office. Board members follow the agenda and review related documents on their devices throughout the duration of this meeting. This work session is a meeting of the Board of Education in the public for the purpose of conducting school district business, and it is not considered a public community meeting. There is time for regular public participation during the work session as indicated in Agenda Item E. If you wish to make a presentation to the board during Agenda Item E, please fill out the Google form located on our district website before Item E on the agenda. This form opens for comment at the beginning of the meeting and is turned off once we get through the public comment portion of the meeting. You may also call into the meeting to speak by calling 574-621-5338. The PIN is 211-521-536. The board will announce when we are ready for public comment. Please unmute yourself at this time. Thank you for support of Buchanan Community Schools.
Mrs. Ryder?
Yes. Have I been muted?
No, you aren't. I actually think that community dialogue is item F in the.
Oh, okay. And
agenda.
I'm reading from the printed. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yep.
And I will say that I am the vice president acting on behalf of our president, Sandy Tobler, who will be joining us later in this meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Dr. Burnett,
Here.
Ms. Ryder,
Here.
Mr. DeVlamic,
Here.
Ms. Lesh here, Mr. Wentworth.
Here.
I'd like an adoption of the agenda, please.
I move that the agenda for the work session of December 16th be adopted as written.
Support.
Item D is
Well,
recognition.
We have to have
we gotta do
roll call.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
It's okay. Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Dr. Burnett,
Yes.
Ms. Ryder,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth,
Yes.
Mr. DeVlamic,
Muted.
Mr. DeVlamic,
Yes. I was just trying to get to the window to unmute myself.
Ms. Lesh, yes, and Sandy's yes. Okay.
Okay. Recognition of visitors. We have 3 visitors tonight in addition to the executive team. I would like to welcome Katie Berry, Scott Carlin, and Chris Carlson, our new board members as of January 1st. Welcome. Mrs. Robinson, would you like to do the executive team introduction?
Sure. Welcome everybody and community. As you are listening to our onboarding session, I do want to welcome and congratulate our new board members. We are all excited about the new year and the start of the work that we will continue from what we have begun. So I have our executive team here this evening. They're going to introduce themselves and then kind of give you just a broad picture of what they do. And then eventually throughout the year, you'll get acclimated to their work. They're a part or members of most of the committees. So you'll have more than enough opportunities to ask some questions and get an idea of more in depth of what they do. I do want to start by just stating that I was chosen as superintendent this school year, so I'm pretty new along with you guys, and we'll learn together. I'm excited about this work, excited about the role, and that as superintendent, my vision for our district is that we become a highly sought after school district where we are able to compete nationally through academics, fine arts, athletics, and student and staff recruitment. And then all of my vision actually aligns with our district's strategic plan, which the board approved, I believe it was in August of this year. We have 5 big goals that we are addressing within our strategic plan. And I have a team, and I'll just kind of share those goals right quick. We have an academics goal that says that will increase student achievement and interest through engaging curriculum programming. We also have a goal that states that we will foster academic and social success through collaborative learning. We will also implement and enhance, hold on, let me get my screen a little bit wider so that I can see here. That will implement and enforce policies and procedures utilizing best practice within all of our departments. That we will strive to maintain and improve communication and engagement with all community stakeholders. And our last goal under operations is that we will provide facilities operations to support district goals. And most of our work this year has been around that. I have a small team that's been put together to put together an implementation plan of our strategic plan. And so our next big step is to have another community forum, which is in the making, and I'll announce it and share all of the dates and all of the particulars with you, just so that we can harness some more community input around those goals. So that's big picture of me. And what I'll do, I'll send it to Mark Curlin, Trisha Laurie, we'll go Daryl, Phil, and that's it. So Mark. You're muted.
All right, how about now? All right, good evening, board members. I am Mark Curlin, and I am currently the assistant superintendent, new title this year. It's the second year in the position with a few added duties this year. I worked at the middle school for 17 years, 5 as the assistant, 12 years as the principal. And so I just kind of put together some of the duties that I've been working on this year. I'll say I'm the unofficial district COVID-19 coordinator. Over the summer, I was one of the co-writers of all the plans that you see posted and talked about, along with Mike Dunn. Coordinated all the meetings over the summer and so on before Trish came in, and then once Trish was on board, worked closely with her. I do work with curriculum. We currently have the Hill and Ottawa project out there dealing with reading and writing at the K4 level. I brought in Mark Tompkins to work with Ottawa this year as part of our title program. He had worked unofficially last year. BMS and the high school is working in ELA curriculum work with Chris Martin, and the high school is doing some math work with Joe Olszewski, and we hope to do some work at BMS later on. I'm the K7 district testing coordinator. I cover the MSTEP, NWA, math and reading, and Delta Math. I'm the district EL coordinator, so we have individualized learning plans for our EL learners and coordinate the K-12 EL testing. I'll say I'm the assistant title director in training. That's new this year. Support the K-7 interventionists and data collection, and support the district as we look at various Title I staff and Title II PDs and spending of grant money. In the fall, I coordinated the professional development in PLCs with Dr. Cruz, and I've gotten a little bit more into grant writing as part of this position. Last year was a co-writer for a couple grants, one for $19,000, another one for $9,000, and then I just wrote another instructional grant that's actually for K-12, which is about $22,000 in the area of intervention. And currently I'm working in the HR support area of evaluation forms. We're trying to put in place evaluation forms for all district employees. And the last one there is my favorite one, any other duties assigned by Trish.
Mark, you're too funny.
So
Thank you.
that's all I have.
My turn?
Yes, whenever you're ready, Tricia.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Tricia Lowry, and I have been the business manager I have had several titles, of course, but most people recognize business manager. My title this year is Director of Finance, Director of Business, sorry. I'm essentially over the entire business office, and that would be all the fiscal functions of the school district. So I'm over the payroll, the accounts payable, accounts receivable, all the auditing, all the general ledger work, all of the grant management, anything that has to do with money, investments. I do a lot of we're starting to work for several of you, the new people will be working on the bond reorganizations. And I worked a lot with that when I first came for the refinancing and those kinds of investment functions, any of the loans or any of those types of things. I supervise the people in the business office that work for me, which includes payroll and accounts payable. And then I also supervise the food service program super director and the transportation director. And I also do all the HR stuff for what we call non-certified staff. So that would be like the bus drivers and the paras and those types of non-certified people. And then I work with all the grants and that's, I guess that's it in a nutshell. And I welcome the 3 new people. We look forward to working with you, and you'll get to know me. I'm pop my head into the personnel committee and the finance committee, and then of course my staff. Everybody talks to them because they all want their sick days and their vacation days and their payroll done correctly. So, and the bills paid. Keep the lights on. That's what we always say. Keep the lights on. So, welcome, and hope to have a great year. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Daryl?
I figured out how to unmute Mark. So I'm Daryl Miller. I am the Director of Operations. This is a new title for me. I was just the operations supervisor. I am also the district's mechanic, so I work on all of the transportation, buses, vans, pickup trucks, equipment that we own. I also oversee custodians, which is a new venture for us this year. We brought our custodians back in-house, which is a huge thing for the district. It's a big juggling act right now. So it's new and we're making it through. It's goes right along with Trish being new. So we're it's working out for everybody. It was one of the great things that our strategic plan that everybody wanted to see in-house custodians instead of outsourced, and so it's a great thing for the district. I work with I would be the guy you call if you see something wrong. Just about everybody has my cell phone number. I am available 24/7, 365. I get all the alarm calls for the buildings, all the fire alarm calls for the buildings, and that's about it. I mean, we do all the work orders. I'll get to know everybody a little more. I know Chris from working with him a little bit, but I've never met Scott, and I have briefly met Katie a couple times. So I'm looking forward to meeting you guys and working together. That's it for me.
Thank you, Daryl. Phil?
My turn. Hi, I am the Director of Technology, and just to kind of, I guess, simplify what I do really quickly is if it's not Daryl, it's me. And if it's not me, it's Daryl. That's kind of the way the district looks at this. So we have 2 full-time employees in the tech department. Me and Joe Kemp is our IT specialist. And we were really fortunate this year to bring on a student intern who is off this week because he's taking finals. So that's good. He's been a huge help to us. We support a few thousand devices across the district right now, K through 12, in both the classroom equipment and one-to-one in our one-to-one initiative, which we once the next wave of equipment arrives, we will truly be a one-to-one district K-12. So that's pretty amazing accomplishment for us. It's one of those bittersweet COVID things. You know, we were able to pay for this because of COVID, but you know, we manage all internet and student devices, anything that's connected to the internet or a network whatsoever, we manage that. Even some of Daryl's equipment now is all online. So we work hand in hand with him on those kinds of things. That includes any communications equipment. So phones, we do that too. In fact, the joke is that if it has a light and it plugs in, it's probably me. We support staff and students and now parents through our help desk. That's a new thing that we launched last spring to help with the number of people that are, the number of families that are now trying to teach from home. They needed support. So Joe and I actually have offices set up at home so that we're available whenever and for whatever. And that's been a huge success for us. We were actually the first in the county to offer that, and we received a lot of calls from the county on how are you doing this, how are you managing that. So I would like to think we did a bit of a role model for that. So that was either a good thing or I have a lot of tech directors that hate me. It could be either way. It's not a surprise, you know, with all the stuff that's going on. The technology is a big deal right now, probably more so than it ever has been before. So we've been working really hard to make sure that, you know, every kid has equitable access, everything that they need, and we're working hard to support and provide the support for the teachers that they need in order for them and their students to be successful. So that's really what we're working really hard to do. So like I said, if it's got a light or plugs in, that'll be me. I've already talked to all of you because you had to have email accounts. So, and so I think everybody got all that figured out. So if you need anything, that's the same as Daryl, or I'm always around. I answer emails at ridiculous times of the day, but it's better to deal with it before bed than to wake up to it. That's my, so welcome everybody.
Thank you, Phil and Ruth. We're all set.
Okay. Next on the agenda is community dialogue and citizens' concerns. If I'm reading this correct, I don't see that we have any. Is there, Michelle? Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, she said her microphone isn't working.
Okay, that's great. Since we've met the executive team, it might be a good idea to introduce the board to the new board members. And I'll start with me very briefly. I know all 3 of you because I remember you sitting in my classes. I'm Ruth Ryder. I have been on the board now for 8 years, and I taught for 45 plus years. So, you know, I know a little history. Next, Harvey.
Harvey Burnett, been on the board for, oh man, 22 years, I think it is. So, yeah. So I don't have nothing else to say. I've just been on here for a while. So.
I'll go. My name's Kelly Lesh. I know all 3 of you. Welcome. Congratulations. I am the current secretary. I've been on for 8 years, and I take the minutes and call out roll call. So you'll get used to hearing from me, but welcome.
I'll go ahead. I'm Chris Lee. I've been on the board for 4 years. I won't be able to use the excuse that I'm the newbie anymore. So welcome to all three of you. I have one son who graduated last year from Buchanan, so I look forward to working with you.
I'll go now, I guess. Dennis Wentworth. I'll be outgoing school board member, and I just wanted to congratulate all of you. Wish you the best of luck in your new positions, and good luck with your learning curve here. I'm sure you will do great.
Absolutely. And Dennis, I know that you have to duck out early. And so if you would like to, we're going to be a little bit out of order as a result of that. And so Dennis, if you would like to speak to legal authority of school boards.
Okay. Do you want to finish the introductions first, or do you want me to jump right in now?
Who is
Jim
still...
needs to go.
Jim.
Oh, Jim, I didn't see you. Jim, please.
Hi, I'm Jim DeVlamick. Been on the school board 10 and a half years. Came on when Sandy did. That was back when they had 4-year terms. I had 4 children. 3 have graduated, and my youngest will be graduating this spring. And I will have a grandbaby here soon. She's 2.5 years old, and got another one that was born a couple weeks ago. So I have more in the district in the future. And I obviously with the 4 children and also being involved with football, been around the school district for a while. And also through the board actions, what have you, I've been able to meet Katie Berry and work with her on the parent committee advisory committee meeting, and I've met Scott Carlin, but I have not met Chris. Of course, I know your wife, that's for sure. She had pretty much all of my 4 children. I've been meaning to write you guys an email just to tell you about this, but then we had this new member orientation, which I like. But if you guys have any questions, you don't hesitate to call me if you like, even after January 1.
And I know Sandy will be coming on later. Thank you, Dennis, for letting me know that. And that's very important to know that this is a very open meeting. So if you have questions at any time, new members, seasoned members, anyone who has any questions, concerns, comments, it's an open forum. And that's true throughout. So we welcome you. We're excited. We're sad to see the 3 that you are replacing leave, but we're excited to see you. So welcome. And Dennis, how about legal authority of this school board and others?
I thought I signed up for board leadership. Was that?
Oh, okay.
Is that what I had on?
That's fine.
Okay. So I'm just going to flip through the point 8 rather quickly. Obviously, everybody can read what's on the paper. And you wouldn't be coming onto this board if you weren't a leader already in some fashion. So it's a little bit different in a board situation maybe than leadership at a business or wherever that might be. When because you act as just a vote of one, you are your person, and B, you only have one employee when you're on the school board, and that would be the superintendent. So knowing and understanding what it takes to be a leader, it is a challenge because you're going to be asked to be a leader amongst for the school system, amongst the community as well. You're now a leader in the community, and people are going to look to you as a leader. But you don't run the school system, so that's a different thing. You need to really focus on the key points of leadership with this. You need to be able to communicate. You're really going to be focused on the vision of the school. Not your vision of the school, but the board's vision of the school that's formed with the community and with the superintendent. You're going to have to bypass leadership sometimes in other positions, be that the PTO or the athletic boosters or whatever it might be, so that you can stay focused on leadership in one area, and that's the leadership at the top of the district. So I'm sure that you all will do fine with that. I'm sure that you will all learn how to take that long view of what's not just best for a particular situation, but what's going to be best for the Buchanan schools as you move through the years, not just the years you're on the board, but the years after you leave the board. So your staff is your superintendent. It's important to develop your relationships with her and nurture him or her in that position. And they will take care of that leadership with the rest of the staff. But you will be responsible. You will be held accountable, even when you're not. And I encourage you to take the MASB classes to learn more details about how that all flows and how to hone your leadership abilities. By becoming informed on all of the details. And that being said, it's still a challenge, and there's still interpretation, and you'll learn as you work your way through that. So as Jim said, if you ever have questions, I will reach out with my personal cell phone number and email if you don't have that already. And I'm always available if you need an understanding of history of anything or how things are functioning. I'm always will be available to help. So I wish you nothing but the best. I'm excited for you three to have your influence on the school district. I know you will do a great job, and that you have the best interest of the students in mind. So thank you and congratulations.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Dennis. And I know you have to pop
It
away.
is my anniversary this evening.
Yay.
So sacrifices you make when you're on the school board.
Just one of many examples. Thank you,
Yep.
Dennis. Say hello to the missus.
All right.
Wentworth. Okay. So now we'll kind of go through this booklet that all of you have. I hope that you've looked through it and maybe have some questions. I'm the first one that's going to go through the school board calendar, and we have one official meeting a month, except the month of June. And in June we have two, and that's because we have certain things that we have to do by a certain date. And so that's something that is just unique to June. At one point we had two in May, but we eliminated that second one in May. And so that's the official board meetings. We have others that are special board meetings that are required because of state law with regards to student disciplinary hearings and some things like that. So officially we have one a month. However, there are a number of other meetings. The last couple of years, for a variety of reasons, have involved many, many meetings. I journal, so I know. In 2019, I attended 75 meetings that year, and this year I will have 81. But that includes committees, but it does not include going to basketball games or spelling bees and so on. So, yeah, it's a time commitment, I'll say that. I also have the school board operating protocols and norms. I will say, before I start with that kind of stuff, and I'm not sure, Harvey, you've been on the board longer than the rest of us. I applaud you for your dedication. But most of us, and I've had this conversation, we were told, you're on the Board of Education. Boom, that was it. There was nothing else. We had to find all of this out. So it's taken months, years, and I am absolutely positive I don't know everything, and I've been on the board now for 8 years. So I applaud Trish and Michelle for putting this together, because it will be enormously helpful to you. So any questions at any time, because we had nothing. We just hit the ground running, literally. So the leadership team is a team of 8 with our superintendent, Trish, and the board. We hope that there are no surprises at the board meetings, and sometimes that doesn't happen, but we're very hopeful that it is not a surprise that sprung on us at that point. And that goes for something that's added to the agenda and something that's deleted from the agenda. Everyone should be aware of what is going to happen during that board meeting. Communication is vital. We have each other's phone numbers. Please text, call, whatever it is that you prefer. We hope to anticipate issues before they become large issues. That follow the chain of command, and that's going to come up. I think, Kelly, you have the chain of command that you're going to speak about. Very important. It's important also to remember that we own the collective decision of the board, which means that once the board makes a decision, we as a board are to support that majority decision. Exemplary governance role, and that's coming up. Harvey will take care of that. Something that we're supposed to do is annually conduct a self-assessment and evaluation. I don't remember that we've done that. And that's something that we as a board need to look at. Harvey, did you ever do that?
No.
Yeah. So it's something that's important for us to evaluate ourselves. We're all about evaluating the superintendent. She's all about evaluating our staff, but we probably should do it ourselves as well. We need to clearly state our goals. Trish is our CEO, and she is the one that is in charge of this district. We act as a body, and we do not have individual authority. I have no more authority than anyone else on this board, and we have to act as a board, not as an individual. Meeting protocol, we strive to avoid words or actions that would create a negative impression of individual board members or staff or the board as a whole or the district. Very, very important. We are to use common courtesy, which has never been a problem with the board. We also do that with public comments, and we expect the same in return. We try to avoid marathon meetings, although once in a while they go quite long. We are to practice efficient decision making and not just endless discussion. Most of the discussion should take place prior to meetings. We have to speak to the agenda items, what's on the agenda items, executive and closed sessions, very, very specific on that. We had to be so sensitive to the legal ramifications. We cannot take notes, we cannot record, and we cannot talk about what transpires in those closed session meetings. Otherwise, we as a board, and I believe as individual members, could be held legally responsible. And to me, the most important thing on this document about norms is kids, our students, our children are first in terms of their needs, their interests, their education, their safety, their emotional, social learning. It's all kids are first. And it's a lot to keep in mind, but it's all important. Any questions or comments from current or new board members? Okay, thank you. Harvey, governance and protocols.
Okay. I'll cover governance a little bit. I know that's in your packet there. I'm just going to hit some highlights, and you guys can read the rest of that. And if you have questions, please feel free to do that. One of the things I know that may come up is the development of the agenda, and usually the superintendent's office, Trish, there is the main one that's putting that agenda together. Usually a lot of that is dealing with business that we have to take care of, and you have to think about, as a board, our governance is about basically our job, our role is about basically enforcing and passing laws and stuff like that for the running of the district. So with that, we do have that. If there's any special needs of an item being placed on the agenda that may come from other board members, then that should be filtered to or given to the board president, and the president will work with the superintendent to make sure that that item gets on the agenda there. As far as what do I have highlighted here? One of the things about the materials for the board meetings, as you heard and as read, back in the day, we used to have packets of paper that we got to deal with the board, kind of the agenda and all the items in that. Now it's coming through electronically. So with that, you should usually receive those items hopefully about 5 days prior to the board meeting as much as possible. Sometimes things change at the last minute. So, the idea is just to be open and patient with that, just because there are some things that do come up to the last minute. But, you will be getting that electronic connection there through, I guess, Google Docs or however that's called. And then you have some time to review the agenda. That way, if you have questions, and the idea behind that is if you do have questions that come up ahead of time about what's on the agenda item, that's the time where you want to talk to the board president or the superintendent about what's there. If you're not sure about some things, that way you can kind of have some clarification before the board meeting comes about there. There are also a thing that may come up is during board meetings, there may be some comments that may be shared by the community or by staff members and things of that nature. And of course, the natural tendency is people want to say things during that process. However, actually the protocol is individual board members should not really be engaging in that kind of dialogue back and forth. There's a reason for that. And Ruth did talk about that. There's things related to board policy and ethics, but also you don't want to say things and then it's out in public and it kind of sets the district up for some legal issues. So usually what will happen is the board president may address that or defer to the superintendent, depending on what it is. It's usually the superintendent can answer that, or if need be, we take that information and do some further investigation, and the superintendent can bring back a report on that, depending on what it is. Some other things that we talk about: requests for information or how information gets out. Usually, Trish, the superintendent, sends out weekly bulletins, information, emails, and things of that nature that gives a report or a rundown on different things that have happened throughout the week within the district, or if some concerns for us. So basically, it's kind of a summary of keeping us abreast of kind of what's happening in the district and things of that nature. If there are other things that are of importance that may come up, she will email us as a board to make sure that we have that information, or if there's certain things that may need addressing or questions, you'll see emails that will come from her asking for information or providing additional things that we may need to consider and stuff like that and things. So we do have that going there. Some other things that as we talk about some governance here, if you are wanting to visit any of the buildings, Of course, we're always free to do so, but it's better as a protocol to make arrangements to let the principal of that building know that you're wanting to come and not just kind of pop in just because of the business of the day. And right now, the way that COVID is, unless you really need to be in the building, don't go unless you have to go. But the idea behind that is just talk to the school principal about that. Also keep in mind, and Ruth did discuss this, is that information that we do talk about with as a board is considered confidential, especially when we're in closed session. And that information, even when it depends on contracts and stuff like that, if it's done in closed session, especially personnel issues, are kept confidential and remains that way. If there's questions that need to be addressed or asked, then you can talk to the superintendent to have those issues or things addressed. There's also this thing about who can talk to the school attorney, especially that represents the district, especially the board. Usually, the president is usually the one that kind of works with the attorney, or the superintendent, or in that kind of fashion there. So that's just one thing that sometimes comes up with that. If we are not in an official meeting, the question is how many of us as a board can kind of gather together and talk without it being considered a quorum and a violation of the Open Meetings Act. That's usually about 3, and that's usually kind of the size of our committees is about 3, so we can kind of do the underlying work based on what the committees are focused on with that. Of course, one of the other parts of our governance is to evaluate the superintendent. And as we go forward, I think we're going to be doing some more training on evaluating the superintendent and using a certain evaluation rubric that will help guide us through that. But there are certain things that we do have to do at certain dates as far as evaluating the superintendent, especially as it talks about in renewal of contracts and those things. And so I know it's listed in your in a general outline in the packet that you have, and sometimes that may come up if there's more questions that can be addressed as well later. Other things that may come up are conflict of interest, especially if board members, depending on what we are voting on. That's why we get those packets ahead of time. And if you're associated, or say for instance, since we may be employed or things with certain entities that the board does business with, we have to be aware of that conflict of interest. And usually if that is an issue, we should be abstaining in that vote from that. There's a list of things that are shared there that you can look at as far as when and how things should go about related to that. So I'm not going to go that much in detail there. And I think the last thing that deals with governance is just board ethics. And you can review that as well. But the biggest thing, and I think that was expressed, is we are here as a Board of Education to deal with the education of our students, which also includes how do we provide that to make sure that our students leave Buchanan schools with the best education, with the best resources that we can work to provide as much as possible. And so as you look through those ethics there, it does talk about attendance. We should be attending, participating in that and on those committees and things of that nature. One of the other things that, we also have to be aware of as becoming a board member, one of the things that we have to be very cognizant of is what we do say in public, especially on social media and things like Facebook, Twitter, or whatever those things are. But it's kind of a little bit different now because you represent also the district. And so since we are representative of the district, we also have to perform or do things that make sure that we have the best interest of the district at heart. And so that means we have to be careful of what we're saying on social media and those platforms that can come back and cause some liability issues for us at the district and things like that. Outside of that, any questions? All right, very good.
I actually do have one question from that, if I could, on the conflicts of interest. Is there anywhere that we officially disclose if we have a conflict of interest for that's kept on record, or is that just as it comes up, it's disclosed?
That is a good question, and kind of looking through that, usually as things come up, we usually ahead of time notify or say that there is a conflict of interest, and then when we have if it's a voting item, then usually it's a abstention there. But usually with the board packet, one of the big things that may come up, like for you, Katie, is we have to vote on annually, which is regular business, about who we do banking with and things like that. And that may be a part where you may have to abstain because that's just one of the routines. And if your employee with the bank there, then, but something to that fact. Or if another good example would say the district awards a new contract for something and one of the members of the board is somehow related to that business, then it's good to and you can notify the president, superintendent, and make that abstain when there's a vote.
Okay. And then just one additional question on it for clarity.
Yeah.
Is it abstaining from the discussion or just abstaining from the vote?
It's abstaining from the vote, right?
Okay.
It's abstaining from the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good question.
Well, one other answer to Katie's question. Sometimes during the audit, the auditor will ask if there's any financial conflicts of interest, maybe send out a questionnaire to all the board members. So that might happen too.
Yeah. And Katie, sorry, go ahead, Ruth.
Well, I was going to say, every year, every board member gets a form letter that you have to say if you are aware of any conflicts of interest and so on. So when you get that, the first time it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But it's just a routine thing that's done every year. And so, yeah, Kelly, sorry.
It's okay. The other thing is, I know I read where you don't have to say anything in a meeting. All you have to do is abstain. So you don't have to say why, how. Courtesy would be to tell Trish why, so she has the knowledge of it and the understanding, or board members, but nobody sits and going to call you out and ask you about that, just so you know.
No, I appreciate it. I was hoping for some level of transparency to make sure that everyone knows what the potential conflicts are. So this is helpful. Thank you.
Right.
Great. Any other questions? Comments?
Ruth, I have one.
Okay.
Where's the oath? We take an oath.
Yes.
Is that in here somewhere?
Well, they've already taken that oath, and Michelle and I talked about this earlier, that perhaps we'll do something again that was never done before, but maybe a ceremonial oath in January, so that the public knows that yes, you do have to take an oath.
Well, my question, my comment of that is, I don't see it anywhere in here. And the oath, when you take that oath, it considers you the public figure. That's where the duty to act and benefit are for the children and stuff. And then our policies, that's where the legal ramifications can come in for all of us. It's not just putting your hand up and saying the oath. It actually means something, and it could be, that's that liability part and the legal part. But I didn't see it anywhere in here. That's why I was confused.
No, it's not. And I had a copy of that just out of all the files recently, and I've got couple of things going here.
I would assume it'd be under governance, because that's how all this falls into place. So I just wanted to add it. So
yeah, it wasn't there in this thing, but yeah, it's there.
That's like the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That holds us to our positions.
Absolutely.
That's
Anything
all
else? Okay. Kelly, I think you're next with chain of command.
How about committees?
How about Jim?
Well, dang it. I have a list and I'm not referring to it. I'm going through I don't know.
You're okay.
Mr. Devlamic, my dear friend and neighbor. Go for it.
All righty. The next thing is committees, and I'm gonna just go ahead and share my screen so you can see. So the current committees that we have, I know Harvey kind of touched base on it, but kind of from a high level, why do we have committees? Well, there's obviously the board is voting legally and making decisions, but sometimes like some of these different areas, the superintendent and their chosen executive staff want to just bounce off ideas and have dialogue and just get ideas and get opinions or what have you. And this is where you're just having that dialogue, but you're not making a decision going forward. That happens at a board meeting. But like Harvey mentioned, you can't have any more than 3 people, because once you have 4, you have quorum. Now that should be in an open meeting. These are the current committees and roles that your first meeting in January, before it's called a reorganizational meeting, before any other meeting, you will all decide which of these you want to be on. What we have had as past practice is we typically go through the order of the board members as to who's been on the longest. So Harvey typically get first choice, and then I guess I don't know who's after that. But that's the order we would typically do. And these are the current members. And I'm going to switch now to the different committees. You guys, I think, have this, but the finance committee is just that you're talking about the district finance. You're going to look through the budget items and get, at that time you'll talk to like Trisha Lowry to talk about the different items, any questions you may have in how do you want this information presented. But that's the goal here that Trish Robinson has, is to meet monthly or as needed. But we just had meeting in December, and then ended up voting for the amended budget in December. So that's one of the things there. Facilities planning is just that, looking at all the facilities, and we need to do a better job of having a better long-term strategy and plan. And how do we, because we got an aging, in another 13 months, we're going to have a building that's 100 years old. That's the high school. So we need to plan this out, and that's what this planning, it's talking about, not only the building structure, but even the smaller items of, buying new equipment, like we're talking about buying a new Bobcat. But some of that is discussed in this area. And again, we just had one, we're talking about a company that could help us look at energy savings, pay for those projects with the energy savings. And the goal there is to then be able to use those extra funds on other things in the general budget. Personnel committee is just that, talking about the personnel, the organization, roles and responsibility, and the staff. Now this is where, again, this is probably even more confidential than anything else, because you're talking about individual employees. Board policy. Annually, we get updates from our Neola of all the various laws and legal policies that we have to keep up with, both federal and state laws. So those get reviewed and discussed, and eventually brought to the board for a first and then a second reading. One of the things that the Lindley report talked about is maybe having an entire board and some of the staff, the executive committee, to be part of a review process where we go through all of our policies, because there are items in there that are very old and should be refreshed and looked at, more than just any state and federal law changes that make us, instead of, in other words, that's kind of being reactive to the laws, but maybe proactively looking at the bylaws and refreshing them and making them more up to date. Then there's a communications committee. We had this for so many years on a board, and I've never seen the communications meet until 2019. So we've met more frequently since then, and I hopefully continue that, because we need to do a better job at communications. Emergency planning committee, looking at the district emergency operations plan, and for us, Harvey and Kelly has often been on that, because being police officers, they have experience in that area, so it helps. And then there's a school farm advisory, curriculum council. Lately, Ruth has been on that, and that's very valuable, having her many years of teaching experience. That helps. Then there's a technology committee with Phil, and looking again at the technology infrastructure as needed. I think that's it for committees.
Are there any questions on that or comments, Kelly?
I was going to share, if you don't get on a committee, that obviously all three of you bring an expertise to the board. And it's actually fun to be on a committee when you know a little something about, I didn't put out a warning, but acronyms are awful for school districts, but they're awful for law enforcement too. So I had to learn all new acronyms, all new slang. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'd sit in a meeting and go, what are they talking about? And one of our, the DWI or something, I can't even remember, something, it's really bad in law enforcement, it's like really good in school. So I was always like, what are you talking about? So I had to get used to the different terms for education for sure. And I still don't know them all after 8 years. But if you, for one of the things I noticed, like if I'm not on I've tried to be on all the committees just to get used to them. I was on policy first, because that's where you're learning. But if I have something that maybe like curriculum, I heard something, I wanted to know something, I'll call a board member that's on the committee and ask them specifically, or, hey, can you find this out in your meeting? Because I heard this and I'm confused. If I haven't already got it from Trish or somebody else, or if it just pops up, I just want to know. Or if it's something that comes back to a board meeting and I know they're working on it. Because that's the transparency part from these committees. You get to do a lot of work in these committees, but then we have to make sure it's transparent when it comes back in front of the board and the community. So don't hesitate to call somebody once you get placed on one, if you're not on one or you want to know more about one, to reach out to a board member that sits on those committees, because that's what I do when or if I have something specific I've heard or need more knowledge about, because it's constantly changing. Obviously, school is constantly moving, so things will come up.
I was just going to add to that. One of the things that we are working at, I know Jim had talked about, but for the policy committee, I know we're in the process of it's going to be an arduous process of updating those policies. So that's something that was already going to be in place of what we do with that, and looking at how we go about, because we usually going to have our legal counsel involved with that in that process there. And then for the emergency planning committee, kind of consider that more, it should be actually considered more of an ad hoc working committee, just because it does its business and we don't have to meet as often, but it's just more of a ad hoc. So kind of think of it as more of that than a regular. I look at it more as an ad hoc working committee than that. So,
and thank you. And I'll add that in the past, one person from the board was on the vertical team for curriculum. And then last year we had 2 members, and then COVID. So that all went by the wayside. But really, curriculum is why we're all here, for students to learn safely and securely. So Trish and I have discussed the fact that we should have an actual curriculum committee that will discuss things like new courses and follow the guidelines as to how courses are added, or materials. We have not added any type of material. In fact, Trish, if I'm correct, we don't even have a budget for new materials at the present time.
That's correct. We're changing that because
Yes.
the whole reason why we're here. Yeah. So we are changing that. But within each individual, and I will say within each individual school's budget, there are items for instructional supplies, but as from a district standpoint, there isn't one. So that is changing.
And we all know that supplies are quite different than those massive revamping and reallocating of funds. And I will emphasize what Kelly said. I've been in education now for, well, since I was a kid, a long time. And there are still acronyms that I have no clue about. And I will say, since retiring, we've gone through 3 different buzzword cycles of what is the educational goal of the United States, the state, the district. So it's a very fluid situation, but if any of you have questions about what the heck does that mean? They're talking about A, B, C, and F. What is that? So don't hesitate to ask questions or other comments.
I was just gonna comment, as you go over in years, it's kind of nice to try a different committee, you know,
Yes.
do something different so you can learn more aspects about the school.
That's an excellent point, Jim. This year I was on the emergency plan committee. Whoa. I learned a lot.
Yeah, it's always good to, because I'm the assistant emergency manager for the city, and I also take care of our emergency stuff for the school. So it just makes it easier to be on that committee since I have to oversee that as one of my responsibilities anyway. So
I would suggest for the 3 new members, we start with the senior member on the board, and then we go through all 7, and then we start again with Harvey, our elder statesman here. And so kind of have in mind what committees you really want to be on, and eventually you'll be on all of them probably.
yeah, and I just realized that I can say no to some. So
I was just going to say, the policy technically states the president actually gets to assign and move around. We've always done it by seniority, which I think all the board members have agreed. But yeah, so eventually, I mean, you could be placed. Thank goodness we haven't had that yet. No.
That ain't happening.
They're all fine.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm on. It's Sandy. Sorry, I'm
hi,
late.
Sandy.
Hello.
We're at chain of command.
And that's you, Kelly.
That's me.
Oh,
yep. So in your book, this is the most exciting page. It's got little boxes and squares and arrows and chain of command. I think this kind of came about, and Katie, you might know a little more too, with the parent advisory committee. And we were having that, the protocol of how do you take care of an issue, or how do you take care of a positive? It's anything. How do you communicate basically within the district? So this came about. I love it. I'm, obviously my occupation is chain of command, but the other thing was people in the public or parents or community members would reach out to board members. So it is on both of our ends. As a board member, we have to tell them where to go. So if a parent has a problem, you need to go directly to the teacher. And this states right down the chain of command. So pretty self-explanatory. If they obviously don't I'll just do the top row, but if they don't get anywhere with the teacher, they're still having problems, or the issue is not addressed, then you would redirect them to the principal. If the principal isn't getting anywhere, this person's still coming back to you. I usually will go and give heads up to Patricia, just so she is aware of what's going on, because she might maybe hear a little bit about it in a meeting. But that way it just knows that something is going on, and guess what? The issue hasn't been resolved. If that parent's still making a complaint, or a community member or a student or somebody, we need to know and get it addressed. So, and then it goes from assistant superintendent to eventually the Board of Education. One of the big things with the board being, it's kind of like we're the final review of a situation. In here, I noticed too, like we include usually at the superintendent level is where you would see we've talked about our attorney in a couple different comments we've talked about. They would work hand in hand with the superintendent, just so you know, and then also us if needed. So anyway, so we would be, you can set up meetings, staff can set up meetings, but they all go through this certain chain of command. So it goes from, you know, the classroom curriculum issues all the way to technology issues, but it's really good to have it laid out. And I think eventually we were going to get it put on the website so everybody kind of has it. So I know we're working on that. The other difference, if you flip the page over, there is external communication or chain of command, and then there's internal communication and chain of command. And so that next page is just the internal. So not much with that, just to keep everything organized and people on the same page. This is how we flow. Obviously, if things don't flow like that, that's when we start having, you know, we hear stuff at meetings. We talked about at the beginning of this meeting where we don't want to have surprises. A big thing, it's a two-way communication with Patricia. If we're hearing things, we need to let her know. If she hears things internally, she kind of lets us know, so we are aware. So it's a big communication. So even emailing, texting, hey, can you talk real quick? You know, just a quick, this is what I heard. I don't know anything more than this. But that way she might already know or already have seen something, and that way she can deal with it right away, put the fires out quickly. So any questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory.
And maybe just something to point out with what Kelly shared with the chain of command. Sometimes I know it may come up where people may be asking a board member to make a public statement or something. The idea is actually, according to policy, Tricia is the spokesperson for the district. So usually it's a matter of deferring, and then depending on what it is or whatever, working it out that way, just in case. That way we still have that flow where you have one person speaking. And usually sometimes that may require a prepared document. Sometimes that's why we have the communications committee as well that works in that if the board needs to put out that kind of a statement from that level. So.
Sandy, since you're on, would you like to take it from here?
Well, there's a problem. I'm driving, so I can't do it all at the same time.
You have two police officers here, so you might be
hands on the wheel.
Hands on the wheel.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm sorry. I got out of there late, and then I wanted to listen at least, so I called in.
Excellent. Well,
so keep going.
Okay. So the next one in this thick book is legal authority of school boards. And does someone want to take that? I thought
yeah.
I thought Dennis, but I can do that, or Harvey or Kelly or Chris. I don't care. Jim?
Let me go find that. I'm not prepared, but I can wing it.
Okay. Very good, Jim. You've got it. It's the first one in that behind the.
I have it, Jim, if you want me to.
Yeah, I'm trying to open it. It's not.
I know.
Right now.
It's okay. So basically legal authority of school boards. There's the biggest thing is the revised school code. When you read through that, the revised school code gives us our power. But among other duties, the revised school code gives each board education general powers too. And then those 5 are educate students, provide the safety and welfare of students, acquire, maintain, and dispose of school property. And that one I'm going to come back to. Determine matters related to school employees and contractors, make joint agreements and cooperative arrangements. So basically the runnings of a school district. The property one, I had no clue, but obviously we have Stark School sitting up there. That's a pretty big entity. But all the way from, we have these large buildings, but property down to buses, to, phones, to computers. So there's a lot to do with property. I didn't realize it at first until you really start looking at some of the stuff that we deal with. And then specific provisions in the revised school code also assign responsibilities to school boards in areas such as setting the curriculum and courses taught in the schools, employing a superintendent. That was a real long process and detailed, but very spelled out how you do that. Adopting a budget, same thing, spelled out. Deciding whether or not to furnish transportation for pupils. You will get this if this ever becomes an issue. Our routes, we make decisions on that based on how many drivers we have, but we do not, we're not required by the revised school code to provide transportation. So negotiating with employee unions regarding salaries and other conditions of employment. So those are all the required duties.
So think of, the legal authority is basically, again, governing the school district overall. And that's kind of what we focus on: adopting budgets, ensuring within those budgets, we're providing education, how that goes about, making sure that we're in compliance with certain state regulatories for education and things of that nature. That's kind of the fun stuff, I guess we do. But, if you have questions or whatever, feel free to ask, or, even talk to, can ask Trish as well. Because if it's kind of different, when your kids go to school and attend compared to being on the board, because now you get a different perspective. And so it's always good to ask questions and say, hey, what is this? Give me a better explanation of this. And especially as far as, when it talks about our legal authority. Again, we act as a corporate body. So it's basically running a business. We're just dealing with this from the education perspective. So.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? And all of you should be very fortunate that Kelly took this, because it started with the history of colonial Massachusetts, and it might have been longer had I explained all of that.
Yeah, I hope you like my version.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be the same way for policy.
Yep. Okay.
I like abbreviation. Anyway, so policy making is next. Basically, we develop the policies. Adoption of the policies is the responsibility of the board. Implementation of the policies is the responsibility of student or superintendent and staff. And then policy review and evaluation is the responsibility of the board based on information received from staff, community, and changes in the law and other resources. So one of the things that's very important to know, I guess, as a new board member, is that our policy, we have a huge book of, all of the school policies, and then we have like the board policies, which you have here. But one of the big things is we don't do this all by ourselves. Laws come down and we hire a company that Neola, you've heard, they will give us recommendation. They will, so if you sit on the policy committee, you'll get a big packet, and it's repetitive because it goes through high school, middle school, elementary. Sometimes it goes through the different staff, from admin to teaching staff to bus drivers. So it will kind of be layered, if you can think of it like that. And then they give recommendations. So their legal opinion will come in these policies, like, you must adopt this, which means we have no option. You have to do it. And then they might give you 2 different ones, or they might say what fits your district. So then like Trish will go down and go, yep, this fits Buchanan. This is what we've been doing. She'll check it, sends it off. And then that becomes our policy. Those policies are what we read at the board meetings, and we have to have 2 readings. 1 for clarification, 2 because some of them are very, very important and we need to make sure people understand them. But it's like, first, this is what it is. Second is to, review it, make sure everyone's clear again, that the board members are clear. And then, yep, we voted it into existence, basically. So A lot of the policies and correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia, is that we could get to, our strategic plan is basically what we kind of form stuff off of, or how we go with our policies. Policies are already set. We have some old ones. We have stuff we've been talking about we need to review. That's where Harvey said we need to get legal counsel involved. That's why, because they're, super important. Or should we even be messing with it? Can we mess with it? But what fits our district? So a lot of the policies, you're going to go off of those 5 goals, and then we might have to change something. We might have to add chain of command. When Patricia became superintendent, she has her ways of doing her business, so she had to change some. So that's kind of where we're at. We can always review policies and look them over, talk as a board. If it doesn't fit us, or if it's from 1960s or whatever, it doesn't fit the current needs. I'm pretty sure a lot of districts are going to be reviewing their policies that fit curriculum with virtual, with technology, and they're ever changing. So if you can look at it like that, but they're very complex too. So like when I sat on the policy committee, if something came up, like the bullying policy came about when I was on the board. So, you can't change what it says we have to do, but you can make it so it fits what we do, or how we're going to kind of do it, how you roll it out. I mean, that's all stuff that Patricia can do, if that makes sense. So how the CEO is going to run the business. So.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Chris. I believe Chris Lee, Chris Carlson went, oh my gosh, Chris Lee, I believe you are going to go over roles and responsibilities of board members.
Yeah. So I'll let you read in your packet kind of the whole list of roles and responsibilities. I was going to kind of summarize it. And in reality, the role of the board is somewhat limited. The board really has 3 major roles. That is hiring, firing, and evaluating the superintendent, policy development, and creating vision for the district, both long and short-term goals. The board only has 1 employee, and that is the superintendent. So when we talk about hiring the superintendent, it's important we get it right. And I'm confident we got it right this time, Trish. When we talk about the role of the superintendent is the top executive or the CEO in the school district. The superintendent implements the school board's vision by making day-to-day decisions about curriculum, personnel, budgets, facilities. Superintendent must also respond to the demands of all the other constituents in the district, including teachers, students, parents, staff, and the community at large. And in addition to all that, the superintendent is responsible for informing the board of all vital matters pertaining to the school district, and making recommendations to the board regarding items like personnel, curriculum, and budget. While the board and superintendent each have distinct roles, we work together as a team of 8. The team's primary responsibility is student achievement. Board of Education's superintendent working relationship requires trust, mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. In the packet, it lists some of the, it says that research shows that a positive working relationship between the board and the superintendent can directly impact student achievement in the district. So it's important that the board and the superintendent have a good working relationship. Some of the things that mentions is it's important that there's always full disclosure. It's important that the board know of any issues that are ongoing in the district, and it's also important that there's frequent two-way communication so that the superintendent knows of any citizens' concerns that maybe board members are hearing. It's important that we have careful planning. No one enjoys surprises. We've already talked about that several times. No surprises. Superintendent and the board should plan together. Planning begins with the board adopting yearly objectives for the district, by which the board provides direction for the superintendent. It's good to have informal interaction. It's been very difficult since Trish was hired due to COVID, but it's important that informal interaction takes place so that the board can work well together. And it's also important to have periodic evaluations, not just an annual evaluation of the superintendent, but it's good to let the superintendent know what the board thinks about how things are going, and let the board know how things are going. It's also very important that both parties support each other. So that's all I really had.
Are there any comments or questions? Go ahead,
Well,
Kelly.
I like the highlighted last part, and I think I've heard it somewhere many times at trainings but the role of the Board of Education is not to run the schools, but to see that they are run well. So I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one of the good things about a good superintendent board relationship is that as Trish, as the head education leader, as superintendent, she also sees things that she would bring to the board as visions that we can look at and adopt, which helps us to also stay focused as well on achieving the goals of the district. So
we keep emphasizing that this is a team of 8. And that's an important concept. Sandy.
Yes.
I think you were doing
The protocols.
Okay.
Is that what's next?
Well,
Are
actually,
you still driving?
I am still driving.
I will.
And it's kind of slippery out
we'll
here,
take
so it's
we'll
taking me longer.
We'll save things for you yeah. So you were doing attributes.
Okay.
Okay.
If effective school, I could do that if you like.
Yeah, do that since she's still driving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now essential attributes of an effective school board member. I'm gonna just read the bullets, I guess, because I don't want to read everything for you. I'm gonna say, be prepared to participate responsibly. Do your homework. Focus on serving all children. Remember that your identity is with the community, not the staff. Represent the community, not a single constituency. So that means if one person has their one axe to grind, you got to do what's right for the community. Be responsible for group behavior and productivity for the when you're in the meetings. Honor divergent opinions without being intimidated by them. Use your special expertise to inform your colleagues' wisdom. So, I'm just reading that a little bit just to understand that a little bit more. If you have a special expertise like law or accounting, whatever, remember that you are not personally responsible for decisions related to that area. Use your expert to help inform your colleagues, but don't assume the role of responsibility. I'm going to say, an example, let's say if I was an accountant, I shouldn't tell Trish Trisha Lowry what to do. I might say, hey, here's a new idea, or give suggestions, but it's not my job to run the business. And when we talk about that throughout the theme, you guys all have a full-time job. You don't want a second full-time job. So, I mean, we want to help guide and steer and make policies, but we don't want to run the district, because that's why we hire Trish, and then she in turn hires additional staff to get that work done. So the last two bullets are beware of the community and staff's perceptions of the board. And think upward and outward more than downward and inward. And that's kind of interesting. This is great temptation to focus on what goes on with management and staff instead of what difference this district should make in the larger world. This requires ignoring the minutiae or details in order to examine, question, and define the big picture. The latter is a daunting task and assumed task, but it's board's work, governors. It's kind of like what we did last year, is trying to define, what we should be doing. That's what gave us the new, we're gonna call it vision and I can't remember the terminology, but that's the kind of stuff. You're trying to set that big picture. Where should we go? And that should help us drive the minutia detail, the staff to work on that.
Mm-hmm. It's called the strategic plan. Yeah.
Strategic plan. Yeah, I knew it was the district vision and mission were derived out of that strategic plan, but I couldn't remember the title of that. I do remember spending MLK Day working on it, though.
Absolutely. That was my birthday, so I remember that day very well. Any comments or questions? Sandy, did you have anything to add? She's still driving. Maybe she's on her way.
Oh, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
still driving.
Oh, good grief.
It's very slippery in South Bend area.
Oh, is
But-
it? Oh,
Yes. But getting towards home now, it's getting better.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I have your personal life. Is that the next one? I think it is. And I will say, when I got on the board, I went from being a teacher, being a peer to the staff, and then being a board member in 2 years. That was an adjustment. I will say that. And it's difficult. But the amount of time that it takes to be a board member, I was just completely unaware. But you have to balance all of this. So it says here, the abrupt change from citizen to board member catches newly board members unaware. And that's very true. You will be at a restaurant, you'll be at the grocery store, and someone will corner you in the aisle to get your adult beverage, and they won't let you go for a while. And that's difficult. You have to learn, or they'll call you at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and so you have to learn how to balance all of this, and invest your time and energy and talent in very specific ways. It can be rewarding to be a board member. Absolutely. It can be difficult at times. Oh, definitely. That is true. Some of the meetings might be, we've had some that are 20 minutes long. Yay. But we've had some that are 4 hours long. So you just have to kind of be flexible with that. Committee meetings, and you'll likely be on 3 committees. And then there are other, we have liaisons with buildings, and there's representative to BRESA. There's a lot of other things, but that will come in January. So there's a bit of additional time beyond the one meeting a month. And then there's the paperwork. Some of our board packets are well over 200 pages. You might learn speed reading or how to skim or how to, I got that, I understand that, let's move on. And you don't have to read everything word for word. And the most important thing is ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask questions. There is a time commitment, but you will enjoy this work. In the break over the holidays, become familiar with board policies, and that's in the back. The board policies specific to the board are in the back of this packet. I know that all three of you have been to board meetings, and so you know the routine, and I know that the board minutes for the last few meetings are in here. Most important, learn to say no. And don't say yes to everything. I'm still trying to learn that. Trish got me involved in something today. Thank you. I should have said no, but I'm glad I didn't. And say yes to what's the priorities. If I don't know what priorities you may have, but embrace those priorities. Embrace what you feel is the most important part of being a board member. I kind of covered that. We have to listen to the community, but the first thing that probably should be said when you're listening to the community, I am a board member, I am not the board. Don't make promises that as an individual board member you cannot keep, should not keep. We have to learn as much as we can about the school system, about how schools work, and that's far different than when all of us were, well, majorly different when I was a student, but also it's so different from 10 years ago when I was teaching every day in that building. And there are so many changes. Learning as much as you can while you can. And if you have questions, definitely ask those of us who've been on the board now, but try to meet with our superintendent. And once we have our new board president, meet with that individual. And the last thing I'd like to speak to is the MASB, Michigan Association for School Boards, and their courses that they offer. These are called CBAs, and there are many, and they lead to what is called MASB certification. Trish, would you like to speak to that a little bit? Because I know that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes. Well, one of my what I see our board moving toward having everyone on the board become board certified. So you get that certification of that label by taking the courses progressively and going to the next course. And you receive a certificate or whatever it is as you go along. What I do, I think that just develops a well-informed board as well as a well-informed superintendent, and we're able to build our relationships together as we move the district along towards progress. And then not only does that set you up while you're serving, if you ever get off the board, it does set you up for other areas outside of this local board, set you up for things at the state level and being able to serve on that level as well. And then possibly doing some mentorships and things like that. But I think it's a good goal for us to have in becoming board certified. The district identifies dollars to pay for the courses. So I think we can take like 2 to 3 years to get that done. So that's kind of where I'm headed with that. And then addition to that, and we're going to have one of the trainings coming up here in January, like the board superintendent relationship training, along with the MASB evaluation training, that'll come up. And I know there are some other trainings that are happening now. So that's kind of where I was going with that.
And the first one in the series of courses is CBA 101, and that's free all this year. And that was very pricey when the rest of us took that. And so I, as a, Vice President Harvey and Kelly and Chris, I highly recommend it because you get so much information, and it's CBA 101, and Michelle can help you get enrolled and registered for any and all of those courses. Chris, do you have any questions on your personal time? We all have questions about that.
I would say one of the helpful things, if I can give any advice, being that I am a full-time working, it's very hard to read through those packets. Michelle will give you notification if it's behind or something is added last minute. So she's very good at communication, which we appreciate. And usually it always works out. And those 5 days are your weekend, just so you know, usually. The other thing is I like to go through and I just read motions first. So if I have something that I'm like, where did this come from? Then I can read what it's about, and then I can then go and ask my questions. But I usually try to read all the motions first. And then if I sit on a committee, I already know what it's about. If I talk to somebody, I know what it's about. So usually I can pass it on, or I call a committee member and say, what is this about? So that's what I do when they're really, really big packets, or we have a lot of stuff to cover. And there are times when, I will reach out to Trish, but also I would recommend or suggest that when you go to meetings, those questions that you're asking, re-ask them, because if you had the question, most likely somebody in the community had the question. If it's something that is, and that helps with the transparency part. You'll see Ruth and I like to talk about that stuff, and that's what we're doing. We might already know about it, but we want to make sure everybody else knows about it. And it's a task, and it's hard to get used to that, but it takes time. But that's something that helps so that you can explain why you're doing what we're doing in the process. It just helps the community, I guess.
Jim, would you like to explain what you just shared?
I just thought, you're talking about MASB, the Michigan Association of School Boards, those CBA classes, and these are the first 8, or, well, I don't see a 107. These are the first few that are probably the most important to hit. There are others beyond this, but these are the first few with 101 Fundamentals of School Board Service. Then there's policy, school finance and school budget, basic school law, curriculum and instruction, community relations leadership, navigating the legislative process. I mean, those are your basic ones. They have a 200 level series as well. But I just thought, just hitting the highlights or what the description of the classes are might be beneficial.
Exactly. I know one of the ones that I have to still take is navigating the legislative process. And I keep saying, I taught it for 40 years. Do I have to take the class? And they say yes. So it'll be something that you will get used to.
I was going to add one last thing. And it was said earlier, maintaining boundaries, which means also saying no. And I know a lot of us are very busy, and I know for me, I triage things that I will participate in, and not just because, you have to have a life. So, so make sure that, you maintain those boundaries and things like that. That way you can still be an effective board member. You don't have to be on everything, attend everything. Just triage that. I know, I have to be in the buildings just on my regular duty things when I have to do that. So because of that, I kind of triage where I go after that, or after hours and things like that. So, just it's a very important thing about maintaining boundaries, and not overkilling yourself. So.
Right.
One of the big ones too is the first one, which is know your board policies, know why we're doing what we're doing, know why you're voting, how you're voting, because you can discuss an open, dialogue or topic, especially after a meeting when it was public information. So somebody might say, well, why is this or why is that? And then you can share that. We are the voice of the district. So you really need to know why we're doing what we're doing. If you just sit there and go, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, it gets, you can get your liquor faster, like Ruth said, or your beverage, if you know what you're talking about. So whatever, when you get stopped in the store.
And I'll just add, I'm obviously old. I'm retired. I have lots of time, but the rest of you, you have to let us know as board members. I know, Scott, you and I talked about the fact that you have your courses in the evening. We have to be conscious of that. We know that Harvey's schedule is so bizarre that none of us understand it. But we have to be aware of individual requirements, and we have to be very transparent among this group of 8 as to what we're able to do, and you know, so we still have a life. We all do, even old people do. Okay. Any other comments or questions on that?
Yeah, I want to say something. I was going to save it till the end, but since it is about personal life, keep in mind too your children. It affects them also. When making hard decisions that are not liked by some, it could affect them, and they'll come home and they'll be crying or saying, you know, so and so don't like me. Just stay in tune to those things and talk to them so they're not feeling sad or regretting that you're on the board. That happened a few times in our household, and I just want to share that with you, and just so you stay in tune to that. You will gain some friends during this, and you will lose some friends during this. And, you know, maybe they weren't really your friends, but I just want to, I mean, I don't want to ever take back the years that I was on the board, but just something to stay in tune to for your children.
Thank you, Sandy. That's a good point.
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize you will likely lose some friends. And as Sandy said, maybe they weren't really friends for you, but you also gain some amazing friendships and relationships being on the board. I feel that the 7 people that I've worked with for the past 8 years are truly friends and will be for forever, you know. So there are good points and there are bad points. So keep that in mind. Anything else? Chris, you have open meetings, and did the new board members get their Open Meeting Act booklet? Yes. Okay. So Chris, have fun.
Okay. So the Open Meetings Act requires that public bodies conduct their business in forums that are open and accessible to the public. So what constitutes a meeting? Normally meetings occur at planned times and locations with a quorum of the board coming together to discuss school district business. But technically a board meeting can occur anytime there's a quorum of board members together discussing school district issues, whether or not the meeting is pre-planned or not. So board members must always be diligent to avoid coming together to discuss district business in an impromptu fashion. The act does not apply to a social or a chance gathering, or maybe you're attending a conference where a quorum is present, as long as the board members do not collectively discuss matters of public policy. What's the definition of a quorum? Under Michigan law, a quorum is a majority of sitting members. In our case, it would be 4 of the 7 board members. And that is why one of the reasons we keep our committees to 3 board members. So we're not creating a quorum. Open Meetings Acts require notice of meetings, that the notice of the meeting is provided to the public and to the board. Individual school board members don't have to worry about taking care of that notice. That's handled by Trish and Michelle. Meeting minutes must be taken minutes of the must be taken of the meeting that is subject to the Open Meetings Act. This includes both open meetings and closed sessions. Open meeting minutes must be made available to the public. So a proposed minutes must be made available within 8 business days after a meeting. And once the minutes are approved, they must be made available within 5 days after the meeting. An open meeting must set aside some portion of the meeting for public comment. Boards do have the right to set certain limitations on public comment, such as when the agenda will be, when in the agenda the public participation will take place, or the time limit for each speaker, or limiting repetitive comments, or prohibiting personal attacks or disorderly behavior. Voting in a meeting, all votes must be recorded in the minutes. Secret ballots are not permitted. Usually a simple voice vote will suffice, like aye and nay, but we typically do a roll call vote for more transparency. A motion will pass when a majority of the sitting board members approve it. Open Meetings Act also includes information on closed sessions. A school board can meet in a closed session for the following reasons. First, the dismissal, suspension, expulsion, or disciplining of a student or employee, but only if that individual requests closed session. Secondly, teacher tenure proceeding, if it's requested. Third, personal evaluation of an employee. Usually it's the superintendent. During the superintendent evaluation, we would go into closed session. The purchase of a lease or property. Meeting with an attorney to discuss pending litigation matter. To discuss specific contents of employment applications or appointment applications. And finally, may go into closed session to discuss information that would otherwise be exempt from disclosure under laws such as FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights Act, or FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, or if or something was considered attorney-client privilege. Unfortunately, most of the time we go into closed session is for discipline of students. It's probably the worst part about serving on the board is having to go through that act. A board can only move into closed session through a vote conducted during an open meeting. Normally, a majority vote is all it's required to go into move into a closed session. But there are 4 cases where a 2/3 vote is required to move into closed session, and those are when there's a property transfer or pending litigation matter with an attorney, or a job application review, or 4 if there's something that's considered exempt under FERPA or FOIA or some other act. Motions to go into closed session must state the specific purpose of the closed session, and the purpose must be recorded in the minutes. Closed session minutes must be kept, but they're not open to the for public inspection, and usually they're not near as specific as minutes taken in open session. So that's all I had.
Questions or comments?
I would say this is the Open Meetings Act is the law of what we as public officials have to follow. It's a lot of information. 2 things I want to say with COVID. They changed some of the rules, so we can go into, there's exceptions to the rule, I should say, that we can go into closed session because of a security issue, or for COVID that affects the whole district, and something that's kind of quick, so you don't have to give that 72 hour, or is it 72 hour notice? Yeah, the notice time frame. And then we did try to switch up our roll call vote. We didn't like it. It's very confusing, but I would say now with COVID on virtual, it is nice to do the roll call because the public doesn't see us. We see each other, but they don't see us. So that verbal acknowledgement is good, I think. So I like the roll call vote because of that purpose. But those kind of things, are pretty much set. We did do the consent agenda too, and we learned that we had to read it out loud to tell what is on it, that transparency piece, because we did make some changes under the old superintendent. So we had to get used to some things. So, but that's really the only change for Open Meetings Act. It's pretty set, and it's across the board for any public body. So the city commission, the county commissioners. So it fits all of us. Any school board, you all have to follow those rules.
And with the COVID, we've been able to meet remotely, but at the present time, all of that will change after the first of the year, although I know that they're going to be discussing this soon at the state legislature. So, again, we're very fluid. We have to be in these tough times.
I'm going to say one more thing for communication as a board. And this gets a little lengthy, so I'm not going to go into it, but I'm more than happy to discuss it. One of the big things is if you communicate by email, and we are all on there, that is all subject to FOIA, just so you know. If you are not talking about anything like a policy change or anything that affects somebody, you're okay. Like you could say, we're going to meet at this time. Okay, that's fine, because it's still going to be FOIA-able, but they can look at it and see that it's nothing that we discussed of business. Does that make sense? So just be aware, emails, text messages. Sometimes we'll reach out as a board and, hey, we got to get a gift, and we put it all out there. That stuff, it can be FOIA-able, but it's not anything that we were doing school business or talking about a school matter. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps, but it gets a little lengthy in there. So feel free to ask about that.
Welcome, Sandy. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Glad you made it home.
Absolutely.
And that's why, I was just going to say that's why, as Kelly pointed out, you in our emails or how we provide that, even in the change, you have to be careful what you say because it is FOIA-able. So you don't want anything getting FOIA'd and being out there, and your name is attached to what's been said. So, which can set the district up for some legal ramifications from that.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. I think we're on number 8, and that's board leadership. And I don't know that anyone took that one.
That's what
Dennis did.
Dennis
Oh,
covered.
that's right. Okay. Somehow I had him down for something else. Board agenda. And I don't think anyone took that one. But basically we talk so much about agenda, and the agenda is basically Trish and the board president, and then Michelle, our able administrative assistant, puts it together. Is there anything, else that we need to cover on that one?
I think the biggest one is at any time during our meetings, we can make a motion to change or add or remove stuff as a board, but you have to do that in the board meeting. So it's a fluid document up until, we vote for something. So I think that's really the only thing that
right. We can add amendments or just change a word or two during the meeting. But again, that goes back to that no surprises. So hopefully we have all this ironed out before we're in that meeting. But we always have to focus on our students. That's our number one focus. And trying to limit agenda items. That's kind of an important one. But basically, this is handled in Trisha's office. And so I think we're good on that. Tips on for board members. Those were interesting that we ended up with. Would someone like to review those? I know we can all read, obviously.
I think we've covered a lot of them.
I think we have.
Yeah.
Which one was that again? I missed it.
The 10 tips for board members.
Oh, the 10
We've
tips.
covered a lot of them.
Yeah, you can read that. We've kind of been here a while.
Yeah. So I think
number 5. Let's not talk a lot.
yeah. Absolutely.
All right, keep going.
Okay, so Jim, you're our school board treasurer, and you volunteered to talk about how we're funded, and then I think we're basically pretty much done. Jim.
All righty. I'm sorry. I don't know. I like to show, but I mean, this is that document that's in there. It does, you could read for yourself, but prior to 94, schools were funded locally by property taxes. But with the Headley Amendment, I think one of the concerns back then were our property taxes being higher than a lot of other states in the, and they wanted to find a different funding source for schools. And so the Headley Amendment was adopted. So, and also the whole idea there was back then, your rich schools or people with money had more spent on their students than those that were more poorer districts didn't have the funding resources. So they're trying to increase the low end, the funding of the schools with less money. So I'm not going to read this document any further, but I created a quick Excel just to kind of talk about funding. These are fictitious numbers I just kind of threw up there, but I thought maybe it would help. So again, I said example, not exact real numbers, but let's just say we at Buchanan have 1,500 students. And let's say the state says, hey, the foundation allowance, and I just pick an even $8,000. That means just the normal state funding is $12 million. Oh, well. But in that Headley Amendment, we must levy a 6 mil homestead and 18 mil non-homestead taxes. And I just threw in a dollar amount. Let's say it was $1.5 million. Well, you'll see every once in a while, we'll have to put that to vote because maybe that 6 mil or 18 mil has, because it's been out there so long, has reduced. And now it's no longer 6 mil, it's 5.8 or 5.6 or something like that. Well, we have to put it back out there for a vote to put it back at 6 and 18 mils. So let's say the foundation allowance is 12 million, and let's say we collected 1,500 or 1.5 million in that local property taxes. The state actually only gives us 10.5 million. If we let this 6 and 18 mil drop, and let's say we didn't, it just slightly dropped. Let's say it went from 1.5 million to 1.4 million. That extra $100,000 we don't get. The state doesn't say, well, because you didn't collect it, we'll give you more. No, you have to levy that in order to get the full foundation allowance. So when that drops, we'll put it out for a vote, and so far it's passed. And because if it doesn't, that's going to reduce our bottom line. That's just the high level state funding. There are other funding sources from the state and federal government, different federal programs. And I just pulled up from our school website. If I could, this is just our budget, and you can see where it, this is broken down to local sources, state, federal, and other financing sources. So there are other dollars and where they get funded, but you can see the bulk of it is from the state, and part of this local sources is those taxes that 6 and 18 mills that we must levy. So, any questions on school funding? Alrighty.
I was just going to add what Jim was talking about. When we talk about the foundation grant that the state provides, it's also based on their budget. And their kind of budget cycle year is different than ours. So, and Jim can say more about that, but that does kind of affect, how we plan or how we budget to make sure that we stay within budget, because we do have to have it, basically within a budget, or kind of try to provide a budget that's balanced and things. So,
and that's something important, I guess, is like you said, the state, their fiscal calendar starts in October. So our first payment doesn't come till later in October, and our last payment comes in August. But those payments are for our fiscal year starts July 1 to June 30th. So when we have, like, in our budget, what is it called? I'm trying to remember the fund balance, the extra money at the end of the year. So we get our last payment in August. Well, September and most of October, we get no money from the state. So we need to make sure there's money in the bank account, in order to make payroll and pay the bills. If we let our fund balance drop too low, in some districts it's too low, at some point, then now you have to go get a short-term loan to make the payroll, and you're going to put yourself in a further deficit in the coming year. So you have to look to balance the budget and make sure there's some in there. And our school, our board policy today is 2 months of expenses, and if you just take 2 divided by 12, it ends up being like 16.6%. So that's where we're trying to target about 16.6% of our budget to be in that fund balance. We would like to not drop below that. In fact, our board policy says you should not drop below that. Anything else?
Yeah. Questions, comments? There's also in the board onboarding packet, there's information about our contracts and what our teachers make, our extracurricular proposal, and then specific examples of what a teacher contract looks like, and also a non-tenure contract, and then also the idea of athletics and extracurricular. And so those are our examples. There's so many contracts that have to be created by our business office and signed by individuals. It's a time-consuming process. So any comments or questions about those? And then also in here in the packet is past minutes, and those are also available on our website. Since I know that all 3 of our new members have been part of Buchanan Community School District for a very long time, there's information about the district here and a map of our district, which we have a pretty large district, and you know, our official name and all of that. I've had people say I never understood the concept of a community school until I came to Buchanan, because the community and the school are just, they're meshed. They're not the community and over here's the school. We are one. So and then the last part of this document is the Board of Education bylaws. And this is where you'll find what is the duties of the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, all of that. And that's sizable. So we're not going over that page by page. And I'm sure that you will all appreciate that. Are there any other things that I've missed or that you have questions or comments about?
There was a lot to take in.
Yes, but imagine
Not having any of that.
yeah, and learning in the next, 12 months. Oh, why are we doing budget amendments? So comments or questions?
I just want to say thank you guys for putting all of this information together for us. Unfortunately, my volume went out about 5:45. Could you guys just repeat what you said the last hour and 53 minutes?
Yeah. You can go and listen to it.
I didn't catch all of that, and I didn't want to interrupt. You guys sounded like you were really on a roll. So
I can't hear Scott. Is he saying something?
I'm not sure.
But seriously, thank you guys. I'm sure I don't want to speak for the other two, and they probably don't want me to do that in the future either. But as an incoming member, this is hugely helpful for me. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to put this together, and I can't imagine not having this stuff and starting. So that was my only comment.
Thank you. Scott. Anything else for the good
Not
of the
that I want
cause?
to prolong this any longer, but maybe someone should talk about how to handle it when a community member comes to you with a complaint. I don't know if Ruth or Kelly or Harvey want to address that.
Well, I'll start, and then I think everyone has something to add. I don't have as many of these because of a variety of reasons. My home phone is not listed anywhere. And you'll hear this a few times, I'm older, so a lot of people don't even know where I live or anything like that. So therefore, I don't get a lot of comments or questions. However, what I would do is the first thing, have you talked to the principal, the supervisor of the buses, whatever, and go through that chain of command, because we are truly the last resort. We're we're like the Supreme Court of the district. And so I know Kelly and Harvey, you have some comments about that too. You get more complaints than I do.
I think Ruth answered the whole thing. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
The best thing to do is refer them back to the level that they, need to address. So if it's talk to the principal, things of that nature, we try to do that to maintain that consistency. And then as well as, it doesn't hurt to also let Trish know, the superintendent, that that concern came up, so that way she can be aware of that if it ever comes back to her level, or she's prepared for that. But it's also good, the thing about it too is you don't want to cut them off. It's good to just sit there and listen to what they say. You can ask a couple of questions, but it's the thing about not making promises, because that's kind of what some people want. Is we want a definite, what are you going to do about this answer right then and there. And again, as was expressed, we're all, we all have one vote. And if things need to come to the board for that, then we'll all do that as one to make that kind of decision. and stuff like that. So the biggest thing is just refer back. And if you're not sure, if you can't, refer to the superintendent as well. So, that way, at least, there's some kind of direction for where they can go to kind of get some answers.
Same. We're a team. Trish has been really good at communicating back out, dealing with issues. She's good at putting the fires out if there are any. There haven't been, they've been dealing with COVID. There hasn't been a lot of issues, but the ones that we have heard and seen and been made aware of through her, we're taken care of, and, great information about those incidents. But so far so good. So it does help to know about stuff, though, because you don't want to be caught off guard in a meeting, but you really don't want to be caught off guard just standing there around somewhere at a game or whatever and somebody lashes out. But I'll be honest, I get a lot of positive, so I don't mind standing around and talking about that stuff. So a lot of good. So we have a great district.
Jim and Sandy, any others?
Only thing I was going to say, but Harvey covered it, is like you said, you talked about the chain of command, directing them towards the appropriate person. But, if it's something I think, gosh, this is a problem. I mean, I have no problem calling the superintendent and say, hey, this is a situation. You think you should be made aware of it, just so they're, they can see it coming too, just it may be a staff or issue or something, but at least the superintendent's aware of it. But like you said, I can't really make those day-to-day decisions, but I could at least direct them to the right person.
Off the chain of command too, if you tell people to put stuff in writing, most likely either they won't or they will. So that does help. So I always give emails too, like go ahead and send her an email and tell her what's going on, or that can kind of deter some stuff too, because if they don't want to put it in writing, sometimes they're just venting. So, but you still should tell people what's going on so they're aware.
And sometimes
and you shouldn't.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Honestly, and you shouldn't just direct them to Trish unless it's an item that she should be addressing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a teacher issue, you should talk to the teacher, and if you don't get a resolution, talk to the principal, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I just encourage. I am. Okay.
You're on.
I encourage them to go back to that person and talk to them. Be upfront, honest. If it's really bothering you, do the chain of command.
Yep.
And listen.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes all they want is to have someone listen and just be there and vent. And then sometimes I say, whoa, that's a really good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. Yeah. That was a good point to bring up, Chris. A brilliant point. A brilliant point.
It's happened to us all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you will be completely blindsided by where did that come from? I've never thought of that, so yeah. On my screen, I have Katie, Scott, and Chris. So I'll start with Katie. Do you have any questions, comments?
I don't. I think I'll ask them as I go, and have already asked those that I had, but no.
Great.
I'm pretty open, so I will share as it comes up. Thank you.
Scott, you had your comments earlier. Anything else?
I don't, and not at this time. I think it's just an abundance of information, and one of those things that just have to kind of learn by doing, and learn by kind of following the lead of others at times. But like I said earlier, again, I really appreciate you guys putting this all together, and all of this together as well, and Michelle for even bringing it to my house with some nice swag, I might add. So thank you for that. So kind of just ask as we go. So
okay. And Chris.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. Like Katie and Scott both said, thanks for putting this together and giving your time tonight. I think that the book is going to be a valuable asset. It certainly was a good read to I did actually read most of it. Finally got the kids away from me where I could spend the time. But there was a lot of things in there that you don't think about when you're running or after you're elected that are important. And so thank you, Michelle, to the amount of time you probably spent putting this together, because as lengthy as it is, I'm sure you spent hours getting in there, but there's a lot of great information.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
I just want to welcome the three of you. I officially have not done that, to Katie, Chris, and Scott. I'm excited for the three of you. I think the three of you are going to do a wonderful job, and there's a tiny bit of me that is envious of you. You have a great leader in place right now, and I think with everyone in place, it's going to be, you're going to take the school places, and I'm excited to watch. And if there's any questions I can ask, please contact me, email me, call me. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
And
that's all I have.
Okay.
I was just going to say, this is technically my last, unless there happens to be an emergency between now and the end of the year.
January, yeah.
With the holidays, I don't see that coming, but this will be my last board action. So been a pleasure to be on the board with you guys. Who knows, maybe in a few years I'll run again. I don't know, but it's been nice working with you guys, and I'll see you around town.
I'll see you next door.
I'm excited for some free time, like being able to go to a party like tonight and being able to stay.
Exactly.
Not that I really should have been there because of COVID, but it was work.
Yeah.
Well, Harvey.
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, never mind. No, I'm excited about you guys coming on board and things, and like Sandy shared, you guys, will make a big difference in our district, even on the small things, and this is about the best thing about what we can do for kids, and that dedication for that and stuff. So have fun with us, and I know it'll be fun for me. That's my last year. So, but you guys are, we're glad to have you with us and being a part of our team. So,
welcome.
Welcome. Absolutely. And I just want to compliment the three of you on listening to a lesson where I said democracy is not a spectator sport. So you are now participants in all of this. So with that being said, I think that unless there's one final question or comment, Trish, do you have anything else?
I would just be reiterating what everyone else has said. I do want to send out a big thank you to Michelle, because I know we were all sending her like information to be going left and right, putting that together. So this is a wonderful manual. I'm going to share this with some of the other superintendents who were kind of gloating about what they've put together, but this is by far a really great manual to follow and to present to others. So thank you to this whole team. That's it.
Okay. So therefore, our next meeting will be January 14th. Is that correct?
12th, it says.
12th. I've screwed that date up so many times, but it's I'm sure you'll be getting that agenda, and have an absolutely amazing holiday season. And I guarantee that 2021 has to be better than this year.
Hope so.
Meeting adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yes, goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Sandy.